Hi, I'm Chris Lee with The Source. We are here at Alexander Buick, Chevrolet, and GMC of Dixon. Great people here, and I'm standing in front of this car. This is the most popular SUV they've got. It's the Chevy Equinox. You can pile the kids and all your stuff in it. It's a beautiful car. Come take a look. If they're not careful, I'm going to drive off with it before I leave here today. But we're going to talk some football for you, and we're going to hit some public school teams we've not hit in some of our other videos. Let's start with a couple of teams that meet in the opening week in the Battle of 840. Let's start with Fairview. Now, Chris Hughes has got one of the more interesting teams around year in and year out. Fairview just wins consistently. They're not always the biggest team around, but they are so creative in their offense. Chris just knows how to piece teams together. And I think this year is going to be no exception. But there's going to be some differences. First of all, Fairview, year in and year out, is not very big. They've got a massive offensive line this year. 275 pounds on average. That is not something that you see at the level of football where Fairview plays. So watch for them to really be able to potentially overwhelm opponents with size. Now, the second thing that's interesting, Cam Harris-Lusk was a really good quarterback for Fairview a year ago. Was one of the better players in his area at that position, a dual threat kid. They have moved him to receiver. Now, he's going to still continue to get the ball in his hands a lot, but Brock Harris is going to take over the quarterback. It's going to be very interesting to see how the Yellow Jackets do with that change. Now, they've always got enough offensive pieces to figure it out, but one thing to remember, Darius James, their star running back from a year ago, is not there this season. He's gone to community college at Kansas. They're going to have to figure out how to replace him. They've always got players, but he's a tough one to replace. Let's talk about Page for just a minute. Page is another team that's interesting offensively. They're very creative. I like Charles Rathbone and his style. He's done some good things there. Now this year, they may go with a two-quarterback approach. I don't think they will, but I saw Cade Walker and Taylor Bittner both in scrimmages. They both look excellent. So I think if Cade Walker goes down, he was their quarterback at the end of last year, Taylor Bittner looked very poised to step in and take over for him. Both of them threw the ball really well in the Jamboree, and both of them were capable of throwing the ball 40 or 50 yards downfield. Their aerial attack, if that's the way they choose to go, could be very interesting. Now, the adjustment for them will be they lost Bubba Johnson, their running back, to Spring Hill. I don't know that they have answers at running back early in the year, but look for them to try to develop their running game. On the defensive side, Michael Burdick, their safety, is one of the better ones around. He's a big playmaker from that spot. I think he had a 2 or 3 interception game a year ago and scored some touchdowns. They're going to count on him to make some plays again. I think Page should have an interesting season, and boy, that week 1 game, where those two teams play, there's going to be a lot of points in that one. Let's talk about another team for a minute. Let's talk about Summit. That was a team that in its Jamboree did not look very good, to be honest with you. Boy, Coach Brian Coleman has known every year how to really put things together for the Spartans. And the one thing that we know, their running back, George Odemegwu, is going to be a star. He's a big 6-foot, 180-pound kid. He's going to carry the ball for them a bunch this year. They will spread the load out, but George Odemegwu is clearly their best player on offense. Their question is, can they block for him? That was something that Brian Coleman was really worried about in the preseason, and I think the development of their offensive line is going to have a lot to determine in terms of their altitude. The other thing that's key here is their defense. Coleman has said he's really going to rely on those guys before they get it together offensively. It's guys like Braden Stem, Kiston Arnold, Jonathan Myers. Those kids are going to be the ones that Coleman counts on to get the job done until the offense figures it out. Now I'm standing in front of the 2018 Buick Encore. It is a sporty SUV for the person who enjoys fun and responsiveness. You can get a 36-month lease for $189 a month. Come check this out at Alexander Chevrolet Buick GMC. Let's talk about Spring Hill. That's a team last year that had Dante Smith, their star running back. He's now at Georgia Tech. So the question is, what do they do to replace him? Well, Bubba Johnson has transferred from Fairview. That's a team that likes to run the ball a lot. I would look for him to potentially get a lot of carries, but they're going to go with multiple guys there. Spring Hill's defense really struggled a year ago. They're going to have to get better this year. Nolensville, I think, is going to be one of the more interesting teams in the area. Last year, Nolensville was in its first season of football. They won 4 games. That included a playoff game And I think that's the first team in the history of the state that won a playoff game in its first year of existence. Well, more change at Nolensville this year. New coach Paul Derrick is going to be in charge, and I liked them of what I saw of them in the Jamborees. They've got a lot of kids who can really play ball. I think their altitude is going to be determined by Brandon Wharton, their quarterback. His dad, of course, played at Tennessee. He's a very athletic kid. He's a dual threat guy. He's gotten better in throwing the football. He had a couple of interceptions in their Jamboree game, but I think if he can really get that down pat, he's an exciting player with his ability to throw the ball and to run. Tim Stayscow is maybe the best two-way player in the area. He's a kid who was going to star for them on defense, but on offense this year, they're going to use him in more ways. They will flex him out as a tight end. He caught over 500 yards worth of passes this year. I think he's going to be their main target. He's about 6'4", 210, and on the defensive side of the ball, he was probably even more productive last year and was All-State as a linebacker. That kid is going to be one of the most fun kids in our coverage area to watch this year. But they've got other guys too on offense. They've got pieces in Zach Campbell, who had about 600 yards receiving last year. Colton Dooley, their running back, who they will really lean on as their workhorse, had over 900 yards rushing. That kid's got a chance to have a really good year for them this year. Those two kids are going to get the ball a lot. Nolensville also has some big kids up front. Ethan Mickelson is a 300-pound lineman. Look for him to carry a lot of the way. Defense, I think, might be their bigger question, but they've got safety Jack McWilliams, who's a very good player coming off a good season. Grant Reeder and Zach Larkin are offensive linemen that they like a lot too. All right, I'm Chris Lee for the Williamson Source. We are here at Alexander Chevrolet, Buick, and GMC of Dixon. Come check them out. They've got a lot of nice folks here. We look forward to continuing to do these here down in Dixon for the rest of football season.